Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Hey, docs, welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and today I'm excited to bring you Dr. Chris Chippendale all the way from the UK. And yes, Zoom works internationally, and we had another great conversation. It's not the first time he's been on, and someone that I really look to, for some insights that are creative and thoughtful and outside the box a little bit. And we were kind of messaging back and forth on the idea of optimism versus cynicism, and he had published a really cool research article about that in one of the Facebook groups. And so I reached out. I was like, hey, let's have a podcast episode about optimism and cynicism as it relates to the clinician or the chiropractor. And I thought we had a really good conversation. Chris brought a lot of good information, and it's thoughtful. And I want you to start thinking about yourself in this regard. Like, are you kind of putting yourself behind the eight ball a little bit because of the cynicism that maybe you have about the profession, about your town, about your skill set, about chiropractic, and how you can be successful or not? It really runs the gamut. And I thought Doc here brought a lot of good information, and it was worthwhile. And I think it's something that you can do some thought about yourself and how that relates to it. Are you optimistic? Are you cynical? Are you a good, happy in between medium? How does each potentially serve you? No right or wrong per se. And I thought this was very applicable to the evidence-based chiropractor, because I think we are a little bit different. I know we're a little bit different, but are you too cynical, and is it impeding your progress? And if you listen to this episode, you might find out you are, or maybe you're not. So without further ado, here is my interview with Dr. Chris Chippendale. All right, Chris, excited to have you back on the show. There's a handful of guests I like to have on and off. And when I kind of stumble upon a particular topic, or in this case, you stumbled on a particular topic, and I reached out to you to have you on to talk about it. But before we talk about optimism and cynicism, give us a little update on yourself.
Yeah, it's good to be back, Kevin. So, yeah, my name's Chris Chippendale. For those who don't know me, I'm a chiro in the UK. We've got 2 full-time practices. We've got 7 DCs working with us and massage therapists as well. But I also do a lot of coaching for chiropractic clinicians around patient-centered care, communication skills, basically how to deliver the best new patient experience that we can. So I set up my company, Patient-Centered Training, back in 2017. And since then, I've been doing that online, some live stuff as well. Last year, I launched my Certified Patient-Centered Practitioner program, which is it's been a passion project of mine for a while. This is kind of, though, think of it as the sum total of everything I've been doing like the past 7-8 years. So it goes through all the skills you need to become, an effective patient-centered practitioner, not just somebody who's nice to patients and doesn't offer cookie cutter care. Like, that's good, but there's a lot more to it than that. So we talk about that. We talk about how you can tailor your communication style to each patient as well, how to deliver a great report of findings. So that's kind of really what I'm up to at the minute. We wrapped our first cohort of that last year, so we're looking to open up, and we'll be starting that again in the next week or 2, probably after this is aired. And that's something that we're looking to build, because that's been getting a lot of interest. A lot of practitioners really want to learn more about that. And for me, it's been the most fun group of people to work with, because they're all engaged. They all want to do better. They're hungry to learn. And we all have the same ethics, putting patients before profit. That's often, and we talked about this before, that in the last conversation, that's where we get tripped up a bit sometimes, thinking profits are bad, but equally, it's people that we know we share the same kind of core values, and with the same idea of where we'd like to see the chiropractic profession go in the future. So that's kind of what I'm all in on and all focusing on at the moment.
Yeah, I think there are a select few chiropractors. You mentioned profit, but there are a select few chiropractors out there that are truly willing, it seems like, to be a starving artist. And it's almost like there's a cynicism around, and we'll dive into it more, but there's like a cynicism around making money, or those chiropractors out there that are making money and doing well are obviously doing something wrong, right? That's the kind of cynicism that they have, that will that we'll dive into for sure. But that doesn't have to be the case. And I think to your point about, working with chiropractors on providing the best patient experience, to be able to do that as a doctor, as a provider, you have to be on your game. And if you are a starving artist, it's cool when you're 28 years old or 38 years old to be broke. It isn't cool when you're 38 and 48 to be broke and spinning your wheels and you got family, and being that starving artist isn't cool. And I just see too many chiropractors going down that trend, and it eats away at that patient experience when that person becomes cynical or thinks that profits are bad. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like I think a lot of what I do with colleagues is kind of going, look, you don't need to overcorrect. Like you've kind of gone too far. Like, we look at what the unethical, side of the profession's doing, and especially evidence-based, we run completely the opposite way. It's like, yeah, okay, like massive hard sell treatment plans are bad, but that doesn't mean you should say, see how it goes every visit. There's a happy
Yeah.
medium there. And I think that's true with finances generally with chiropractors, that yes, if you're in this purely for the money and that's your main focus is to make as much money as possible, you don't care about patients. Like I'm never going to be on board with that. We can all see the massive, massive problems with that. But then to go the other way and go, well, I'm not going to think about money at all. That's an overcorrection too. There's something I heard years ago, always stayed with, said, I think they were talking about airline pilots and how much
Mhm.
airline pilots were paid, and they were paid quite low. And somebody was like, I don't want my pilot at 32,000 feet to be worrying how he's paying his mortgage. I want him to be so focused on flying the plane, he's not thinking about that. And I think that's true for a lot of us more in the evidence-based side, that, it can be a badge of honor. It can be like, oh, I don't care about money. I'm not looking to make that much money. But we all have to make a living. We'll have to keep a roof over our heads. And if there's even a slight part of you that is frustrated or worried or concerned, or maybe even a little bit resentful that you're not making what you'd like to, that is going to impact your ability to be present with the patient. That is going to impact the kind of care that you provide. You can tell yourself that it won't, but I promise you it will. You can't just separate that part of yourself out and pretend it's not there in the room with patients. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of the frustration on the evidence-based side comes in, is we don't want to be money focused. We don't want to be, putting profits over people. But if we don't take care of the financial side, and we don't make sure we set things up so that we can have the kind of income that we'd like, not just make ends meet, but, we're professionals, enjoy a professional wage, feel like we're well, reimbursed for our time. If we can't do that, it is going to have an impact on patient care. So I think it's patient centered to make sure you take care of the finances. You can't really separate that entirely.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you actually had shared a research paper on the optimism and cynicism in the clinician. What were some of the key takeaways from that?
Yeah, so this was really interesting. I came across this on a podcast actually first. The biggest takeaway is there's this idea, like cynicism's kind of cool in culture, and it's sort of associated with like intelligent people. Like, the real geniuses are all cynical, whether it was like, Dr. House or like Sheldon from the Big Bang Theory. It's like real geniuses. They see through all the lies and all the BS that the rest of us believe in. They see reality for the cold, hard truth that it is. Life's unfair and everybody's like completely selfish. And this paper found that the complete opposite was true, that actually cynicism is associated with slightly lower IQ.
Mhm.
Now that doesn't mean that, people who are high IQ are automatically trusting all the time, but you could basically predict, if you looked at somebody's like intelligence and their capability as a teenager, you could predict how cynical their worldview is likely to become. So they showed that it was actually causative, that having a slightly lower IQ, being less competent generally, made you more likely to be cynical, because it's a defense mechanism.
Mhm.
If you're not very competent, if you're not very good at the things you need to do to be successful in life, you're not going to be that successful. It's going to be easier for people to take advantage of you. You're more likely to fail. So it's a nice little comfort blanket to be able to go, well, it's because the game's rigged and you can't make money as a effective chiropractor without compromising your morals. And,
Mhm.
it's a really nice way to externalize the responsibility for all your problems. Like it's not that I failed, it's that the game's rigged. And anybody who's doing better than me, well, it must be because they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It's a nice
Yeah.
story to tell yourself. The problem is it completely disempowers you. And it means you don't end up going and looking for the things that could improve your situation. So that was one of the big ones there, was really looking at, it predicted how cynical you were likely to be in the future.
I'd like to dive into that part of it because I think that's the real crux of the issue. And I know things are going to be different. We have a very worldwide audience, which is cool. A lot of people in the UK, Australia, Canada. Obviously, the majority of our listenership is in the United States, and we have the insurance model, and that insurance model is different from state to state. Like in where I'm at in Florida, it pays like crap. If you're in Oregon, North Carolina, Illinois, there's a handful of others. It pays rather well. Um, but across the board, there's chiropractors doing very well. And no matter what country or state you want to talk about, there's people doing well and doing it well, like you said, morally or ethically, evidence-based care, patient-centered. They are doing it. I talk to these people, I see them. I know you do as well. And I think one of the concerns is that too many chiropractors, like you said, externalize it, blame all the things, right? The chiropractic school is at fault. The student loan debt they have is at fault. The insurance reimbursement is at fault. The town they live in is not affluent. Like I mean, you could just run the laundry list of things that is, obviously everybody else's fault.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's that cynicism. And that's just not a way to actually overcome anything.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes self-fulfilling, because if you
Yeah.
believe that long enough, well, then you never get better. And it's sort of like the yellow flagged patient who's told that your spine is crumbling on the MRI, and then they get really afraid. They stop doing meaningful activities. They stop doing exercise, tense all the time. The pain gets worse. They go, oh no, the pain's worse. I must be crumbling even more. It's kind of the same thing. It becomes this self-fulfilling thing. And the deeper you get into that spiral, the harder it is to get out. Um, and the reverse is true. One of the reasons why people who are more competent tend to be more optimistic, because if you feel like you have some control, some agency, you have the ability to change your situation, you're going to be able to take risks. Like, that doesn't mean you're going to get careless and naive, but you're going to be able to go, all right, I'm going to take a chance here. This might not pay off, but I can give it a go because I have the self-belief to know that if it doesn't work out, I'll be okay. There's a really good exercise. I did a course a few months ago on imposter syndrome, professional resilience. And one of the key exercises I got was from Tim Ferriss, where he calls it
Mhm.
fear setting, where you
Yep.
basically don't think about goal setting, all the cool stuff you want to achieve. Think about the stuff that's scaring you and stopping you from taking action. And it's a really useful exercise. It's like, if you actually look at this for your biggest fear and go, okay, let's say that happens. What are you going to do next? How would you overcome it? Often you can look at it logically and go, oh, well, even if that happened, I wouldn't die. I probably wouldn't lose a limb. Like, yeah, I might end up, broken, having to start again. But if I had to start again, I could probably get back to where I was if I did this in this many years. And it's just putting things in context. I think that's something that optimistic people naturally tend to be better at. And it's a skill set that really allows you to identify where are the risks that could be really rewarding. And if it doesn't work out, I'm not going to completely sort of collapse and crumble and freak out because I know, oh, that didn't pay off. Okay, how am I going to pick it up and move on?
Yeah, I love the fear setting. I've read up on that quite a few times. I actually use that as the foundation of me exiting patient care. And it's to your point, it actually worked out. Like when I exited care for a year, it was going great. We transitioned and all of it went well until the main doctor left and moved his family, which, it just upended things for there. But a year later now, because it was about a year ago, um, that was the worst thing that could happen in my fear setting things, and it was fine. Like
Mm,
our practice right now is a lot healthier than it was a year ago. And so, the worst case scenario was I had to jump back into care, take my time to find the right person. We did, and we're fine. Right. And that was a big, at 40, I was 42 years old at the time to exit patient care. That was a big risk. Obviously, I had some plans and buffers in there, but that fear setting, really, I do tend to be optimistic. And but I like to your point, I have a little bit of confidence in saying, okay, what's the worst going to happen? If that happens, I hop back into care. I was always prepared for that. Like, so when I was given the 2 months notice, as far as my associate leaving, I was ready. I was like, okay, yep, this was on the board. This could happen. It wasn't like it
yeah,
was
yeah.
shocking, and I just got to get back into it. And I've got a plan to move forward with that. So I'm glad you brought up the fear setting. Let's take a break from today's episode and announce our first sponsor. This is going to be Propel Marketing and Design. I've known Darcy Sullivan for years. We've worked hand in hand on my websites. I don't trust anybody else to do this search engine optimization. She does a great job. There's so much to it. A lot of the lingo and the words are beyond my comprehension, but it's just amazing work that she does. And if you're really going to get results with Google, you have to make sure your website is SEO optimized. And I really don't want you doing it yourself as a chiropractor. So you just have to have this type of stuff done. And if you're looking to get more organic online traffic that pulls in new patients, Propel Marketing and Design is currently offering chiropractors who listen to this podcast a free SEO website review. The free review will help you uncover methods that will improve your website and boost your search engine visibility. Head over to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor and schedule your free SEO website review. You won't regret it. She gets great results. Your website needs this. Your search results need this. Head on over there to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor to get your free SEO website review. Let's take a short break for one of our great sponsors, TrackStat. It is a new type of software plugin for your EHR that combines patient communication, marketing, automation, and statistics with patient and employee tracking. Built by chiropractors for chiropractors, it shows your team what to focus on each day. See patient visit habits, missing information, unpaid bills, insurance collection visit average, and more. Great visibility of data so you can focus on filling your office with your best patients. When you can see what your staff and patients are doing or not doing and take action accordingly, your profits naturally grow. Take TrackStat for a test drive in your office with our free trial. Not a techie, no problem, we can help. To get started on your free trial, visit trackstat.org and watch the demo. That is trackstat.org. The other thing I want to bring up, just while we're on it, so I don't forget, there's a really good book because I think our listeners that maybe they are self-aware and they do say, you know what, I am on the cynical side of the scale. There's a great book by Martin Seligman called Learned Optimism. So you can get more optimistic. You may not go from being super pessimistic to being super optimistic, but you can improve on that scale. So just a resource for people on optimism. And then I want to touch on something to get your thoughts on it. This reminds me of like when we talk about cynicism and optimism, the cynicism to me kind of lines up with another great book, which is The Growth Mindset.
Yes,
And
I was thinking of that as you mentioned learned optimism, actually. Yeah, go on.
yes. So I want you to talk about like, I feel like the growth mindset is probably going to be the optimistic person more so. And then the fixed mindset is probably going to be the cynical person there. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, completely. It's funny, actually. You read different books and you come across different concepts and you find often they're kind of describing very similar things. And I think growth and fixed mindsets map onto this really well. There's differences to each, but I would say optimism, that's certainly a core feature of the growth mindset. So your growth mindset meaning, you know, you always see your ability to improve it within your own control. Like people can change, people can get better. And that means you believe you can get better. That fixed mindset, you kind of say, well, people are who they are. They're not going to change. That is going to overlap with the cynicism, because if stuff's not going well for you and you think that you can't change and other people can't change and well, it's all right for them. They were born cleverer, or they were born more charismatic, or they were born into money, or, you know, whatever it might be. Again, it's a very disempowering place to be. And that fixed mindset, again, ties into that course I did. That's another thing where it's just not a fun place where you can't really escape it that easy. But you can, and Carol talks about this in her book, you can improve your mindset. You know, ironically, if you have a fixed mindset, you'll read it and go, oh no, I have a fixed mindset. I must be stuck like this forever. And she's like, no. The reason you want the growth mindset is because it's actually true. And if you have a growth mindset, you believe somebody who has a fixed mindset, somebody who is more cynical, they can improve, they can change it. I think of it a little bit like there's definitely personality traits associated with it. And with personality, you can't necessarily change your core personality, but you can become more flexible with it. I liken this to singing. Like my wife is an amazing singer. She had some vocal lessons a few years ago, but she's been able to sing brilliantly ever since like she was born. Really, really amazing. She can get a bit better with vocal coaching, but she is really, really good. Me, complete disaster. I will clear out a karaoke bar in 30 seconds. Like nobody needs to hear that. My natural talent, like through the floor. I could get better with coaching. I'm never going to be as good as her, but I could probably get to the point where I could do some passable stuff. You know, I could, wouldn't be on TV, but maybe I'd do all right at karaoke. If I put in the effort, I could do that. So some people will naturally be more growth and more fixed mindset than others. And it's unrealistic to think that we can all get to exactly the same level, but everybody can get better with that practice. And something she talks about in that book is that you don't have to develop a growth mindset everywhere. Like, because your context will change it. Some people will have more of a growth mindset in their practice versus at home versus with their friends versus doing a hobby. So even if you just get it in one or two places, that's enough for it to start to spill over into the rest of your life. So it's not about trying to be perfect with it, but just growing that ability to think, maybe I can change. Maybe there are some things that I could improve in this situation. Even a little bit, it starts to just relax things.
It does, and then it becomes a snowball effect. And I think the other thing that might happen to some folks is they look at, there's different levels of success, and I want to back into that topic in a second here. But I talk to a lot of chiropractors, different countries, different genders, different races, different towns, um, different personalities, different looks, right? Yeah, like there's studies out there, like good looking people tend to do better than not good looking people. I get that. Like there's stuff out there, but I know chiropractors that are not that attractive and they're doing phenomenal. I know short ones, I know tall ones. Like you give me the chiropractor type or location or state or country, I can give you someone that's doing it right and achieving success to what it looks like for them, which is my next kind of back into topic, is that your level of success does not have to look like 10 clinics and $2 million a year in personal take home income and 4 houses, right? Like you define what your level of success is, but we all know it's kind of like we all know what lack of success looks like. And sometimes that's tricky too, right? Because it, the person could have the finances, but they're working too hard and they're not delegating, they're not building a team. And so they end up burning out at 37 years old. And so that's not success. Even if they have the money, that's just not success. We do know people that don't make a ton of money, but make enough, and they're smart with their money. They're smart with spending. They have time on their hands, and they do this shit for 40 years without burning out. And at the end of the day, when we're all 65 years old, they have more money for retirement than the chiropractor that was taking home 500,000 a year and spending 495 of it. Right. So, it looks differently. It could be different. And so you don't have to, I think sometimes a cynical person looks at like the upper echelon of their profession and says, well, I'm never going to be that. And so why even bother? That's the wrong way to look at it. Right.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. It's that idea of, because we all kind of know this stuff, but then what people know and how they act often doesn't correlate. Like we all know money isn't everything, but then subconsciously, a lot of people will still act and have to generate that massive practice. I mean, I think what would really help a lot of people is to kind of take some time to sit down and think, not just what kind of practice do you want, but what sort of life do you want? And it's really good to think about what you want more of, less of in your life. Like for me, I'm a massive extrovert. I need a team. I spoke to this guy years ago when I was at a conference, and he said, I don't get why people have associates. It's like, they're never as good as you. They're impacting your reputation, your business, and the ones who are good leave. Like if you want to make more money, just charge more. I mean, he worked in Manhattan, so he could charge $300 on adjustment and stuff. And, I didn't agree with that, but put a slight seed of doubt in my head. Do I want to, like, something about that lone wolf practice? Like, that sounds lovely and simple, like the freedom, like there's a lot of guys online who are doing that with virtual reception, online booking. And I had this little doubt of like, should I do that instead? I mean, that does sound a lot easier. And then post-COVID, I got a little bit of a taste of what that would be like when we had nobody in the practice apart from me and one patient. Front desk weren't in the building for ages. And okay, that's not a fair comparison. It's COVID, but I had this taste of what it would be like just me and one patient at a time and working at that lower volume. And I
Mhm.
hated it. I felt
Yeah.
lonely. I was like,
Yeah.
I missed the buzz in reception. I missed having my CAs here. I missed having somebody to chat to on a break. I'm an extrovert. I need to be surrounded by people. So for me, it made me realize, wow, I need a team.
Yeah.
I absolutely have to have a team around me to enjoy what I do. Spoke to a friend of mine. She has her practice basically the front room of her house. Like she's a
Mhm.
separate entrance, but one patient comes in, she sees, a third of the amount of patients I see in a week. She works half the hours that I do, and she takes home a similar amount of money. And she
Mhm.
loves it because she's an introvert. She doesn't like
Yeah.
managing people. She doesn't have to deal with the team. She just wants her and the one patient there, that interaction. So for her, that's success. If I was to end up practicing like her or her like me, we'd both feel like we'd failed somehow. What do you want more of? And then, okay, what would a successful career built around that look like?
Yeah. A little bit of a public service announcement on if you are just one doc and by yourself, you got to be careful because multiple things. First one is just that if you get hurt or disabled, like then you may not have a business anymore at all. If you have a team and you do build associates and something like that happens, you still would have a business. It might be impacted, but you would still have a business there. And so that's something to consider is what happens if the worst happens in
That's
those
very true. Yeah.
scenarios. And so I want a lot of chiropractors to always have a backup plan for stuff like that if they're going to be
Mm.
long term solo.
Do you guys have
And
like income protection? Is that a thing? Because the
well,
experienced guys owner like me will have that, but a lot of the newer grads out here have never been told about it. It's like you fall over and break a leg badly, you're out for 6 months. You need some sort of
well,
buffer.
let me put on my cynicism hat for a second, and uh, just like a lot of things in the United States, it got abused. So getting a healthy disability insurance plan is challenging nowadays.
Mm,
I've got one from 20 years ago. I think it would pay me like $800 a month if I got
mm,
if I was in that scenario. So there may still be some out there, but it's not a great situation. But there are
mm.
this is a good topic, just quick to mention for our audience. You could look into AFLAC plans, and they have short-term disability situations. So I would look into that for chiropractors. That I think all chiropractors um, should definitely do that, right? And
Mm.
that would be important to do that. Right?
Yeah. Or just have a buffer, have money set aside. Yeah, a friend of mine, he he's saying he only pays for insurance that he legally has to have.
Yeah,
He's like, because
yeah.
my attitude is, well, they're the house always wins. I'm going to take that money and put it away. And
Hmm.
then, he makes sure he has a buffer. So if something goes wrong, he's like, well, that's taken care of. I can afford that. So I think that works too. It's just, yeah, making sure you have a plan. I think it's definitely, it's part of that fear setting, right? What happens if that?
It is absolutely, and so it's something to take into consideration. And I think the next thing is like if you are cynical about building a team, because I do see chiropractors out there who are cynical and they say, I'll never be able to afford a team. I don't want to have to manage a team. I am introverted. I don't want to have a team. Like there's a lot of cynicism around building a team. And if you're in that younger years, and I mentioned it, it's like, you have a higher risk of burning out if you're 15, 20, 25 years into this and you're doing everything yourself. You're
Mhm.
scheduling patients, you're taking credit card payments, you're doing all the modalities, all the exercise, like you're just doing everything. If you do that for a long period of time, you have a very high chance of burning out. I'm just concerned about, and we kind of talked about this earlier. I'm concerned about the DC that's like the 30 and 60, really both of them, if they're not careful. The 30-minute solo DC can get to 20 and definitely, have profit margin, higher team around them. The 60-minute DC, I'm getting more and more concerned about. They're wanting to do everything for that patient for 60 minutes. And you either got to charge a ton of money
Mm.
to do that, or you're going to be spinning your wheels for quite a long time. And what I'm seeing is most of the crowd that is in that 60-minute DC realm, that's just, again, they're doing everything. They're not delegating anything.
Yeah.
And some of them are even using it in their marketing. It's like, you're going to get one-on-one doctor time for 60 minutes. No one else is doing that. A lot of them are younger. They're, they're 28, they're 30, they're 26, they're 33.
Yeah.
I don't know because this hasn't been going on a long time. Like, there wasn't many, let's say when I graduated in 2005, there wasn't that many chiropractors doing one-on-one sessions of 60 minutes. So there's not a lot of 45-year-olds right now that have been doing it for 20 years. Hey there, chiropractors. Are you tired of feeling like your dream practice is just out of reach? I know how frustrating it can be trying to balance patient care, paperwork, and billing while striving for that ideal practice you've always envisioned. But guess what? There's a solution that can make your dream a reality. Introducing Genesis Chiropractic Software, the key to unlocking your dream practice. Picture this: no more drowning in paperwork, no more scheduling headaches, and no more billing nightmares. With Genesis, you'll have everything you need to streamline your practice and focus on what truly matters, providing exceptional care to your patients. Imagine a practice where every patient interaction is seamless, every appointment is perfectly scheduled, and every billing process is smooth as silk. That's the power of Genesis. Ready to turn your dream practice into a reality? Schedule your consultation with Genesis today and take the first step towards practice success. Don't let the challenges of running a practice hold you back. With Genesis, your dream practice is within reach. Visit www.genesischiropracticsoftware.com/MCM to get started. Trust me, you won't regret it. Genesis Chiropractic Software, because every practice owner deserves to achieve their dreams. And so I'm
Yeah.
concerned. I'm concerned with the 28-year-old and the 30-year-old. Are they going to be able to sustain this into their 40s, late 30s, and 50s? Right?
Yeah. I think there's the issue with that is I do see some old DC doing it, but they're not 45. They're usually more in their 50s. And
Mhm.
they're ones who generally have built a team, have built a practice, business is going fairly well.
Yep.
That bought them the freedom to go, I want to really specialize on this niche. I don't need to worry about being the one treating the patients to keep the business going. Financially, them and the business are pretty stable.
Yep.
If they've done a really good job with that, then they can go, oh, I want to go into this particular, whether it's like functional neurology or one-on-one rehab.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's kind of, to me, it's like, okay, you're turning patient time into more of a hobby. I don't have a problem with that per se, as long as people know that, yeah, there's this middle section. You
Mhm.
can't get there. You can't build the whole team while you're doing that yourself.
Yep.
So you can certainly do it that way. Then yeah, I mean, if I'm just going to ruffle a few feathers, but I honestly think most of the DCs who are doing this, there's a little bit of ego at play. There's a little bit
Yep.
of like wanting to be the one who has all the answers, wanting to be the one who
Mhm.
does all the stuff, wanting to be. It's an easy way to say I'm better than everybody, right? That's an easy mark. No one else is
Yep.
spending 60 minutes with you for this price. It's like, there's a reason for that. Um,
Yeah.
I know everyone's going to listen and go, oh, that's not me, that's the others, but I've
Yeah.
seen it
No,
quite
but
a few times.
to your point, I do think that is a little bit of an ego thing. And to you said there's cynicism around the ability to delegate a lot of the care,
Mm,
and it be done effectively. And so it's a cynicism around that too, where, okay, no, I have to do this. I'm the doctor. I'm trained in this. They need the world-class care for the full 60 minutes. But
mm.
I like to kind of flip that on that. Is like, if you had a little more of an optimistic take on that, you would believe in your leadership skills to be able to effectively train your team, to be able to handle a lot of those things.
100%.
And yeah, I think that's kind of the mindset shift on it. And when I sometimes rail on the 60-minute DC, I'm not railing on it because of the clinical, that they're doing. Like, obviously that's really good. It's really good clinically, but I just have a concern for them. Whereas if I was talking about the other shady chiropractors, I'm going to rail on them because the clinical is shit.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that to the 60-minute. Like, they're doing great work. I'm just concerned for them long term. And I think, there has to be, because some people ask me, like, well, what's the solution? Right. I know one solution for the 60-minute has been huge care plans that are, ends up being like
Mm.
3, 4, $500 a visit. That's fine. I'm all for getting out of the commoditization trap, but that's going to lead you down a path of like, okay, how many people in your town can afford that? What happens if after 10 visits, they spent $4,000 and they're not getting better. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow, and you're going to have to answer to that. And then lastly, um, you know, you're going to really have to get good at very like strategic sales, and you're going to have to be good at it. So when people ask me like, well, what's the counter to it? What's the solution? Like, I'm cool if the patient spends 60 minutes in your office. Like, I see it all the time with clinic gym hybrid, which is a great model because that model does not say that the doctor's doing the training, right? It
Yeah.
says
Yeah.
there's a doctor and there's a trainer. So that model's great. I see patients spending 60 minutes in clinics where the doctor's spending 10, 12, 15 minutes with the patient, and then they're getting delegated out certain things like that. And that's going to work. It makes sense from that. But I think what's happening is there's a cynicism around the ability to go that route with it. So I just
Yeah,
wanted
I think part of what that is, like, it probably links back to cynicism sometimes being a sign of lacking competency, but that ability to manage a team, that ability to I mean, even if it's not a team, like we have massage therapists here, but I co-manage with local professionals a lot. Like, I'm constantly referring out of the practice, say, hey, I think a couple of sessions with this acupuncturist I know here, I'll send you to our good S&C guy, they'll help build this up. That ability to know when and where to refer and when to co-manage, and are you going to stop seeing them when this person takes over, or are you going to both do them together? Like, that's tough. That's a challenge. I put a lot of focus in the last 6-7 years into that, and I really enjoy that, but it's been a real learning process. Not something, everybody talks about multidisciplinary care. It's in all the guidelines. Everyone's told that's the future. No one's really talking about how to do it that well. I mean, there's some people, but I think the cynicism might come from a sense of, that sounds quite difficult. I'd have to go out and network. Like, I'd have to go and find these other people. I'd have to go and work out if they're good or not, and that, even networking alone, I know, is scary for some people. Then you have to work out when to use them, when not to use them. What do you do if the patient says, oh, you sent me to that person, I really didn't get on with it? It is more complex. It is more of a challenge. So deciding to do it all yourself, it's a nice kind of comfort blanket for that as well. I'd push back a little bit on the clinical side. I totally agree that the 1-2 minute, the high volume stuff out there, that's clinically bad. But I would say that actually, if you have a patient, like, if they could have, a 3-hour session with you, I know it's extreme, 3 hours with you, and they pay, say they pay like $300 for sake of the argument, or you could have 6 half-hour visits with 6 different professionals, they pay $50 each. They're going to feel like they got way better value from the second one, because they're getting 6 brains. And you might be pretty good at, like needling, and you might be pretty good at some soft tissue, and you might be okay at adjusting, you might be all right at doing, personal rehab plans and movement assessments and all this kind of stuff. But you can't be great at all of it. And I think if the patient can see, people who are great at all those things, the standard of care goes up. Especially when you consider, a lot of the folks who are trying to do this stuff and trying to fit everything into one session, they've often not been doing this for more than a decade. So realistic, are you going to have learned to master all those different skills in that time, compared to what another few clinicians might all be able to pull in together? I'm skeptical you're really going to be better than 3 brains, for example.
So you have some cynicism right now. Gotcha.
I'm optimistic you can do better.
You're optimistic it could change, right?
Yeah, I believe let's bring in other people, other brains can help. But yeah, I'm doubtful that would really be the best outcome. For some patients, maybe, but
yeah. And I'll say I'm a little, I have cynicism around some of the direction of that, but I'm optimistic that there is alternatives, and that it can all be patient centered, and the patient can still benefit, and the doctor can thrive, and the doctor can be present and feel good and not get burned out. I'm optimistic that there's a path there. And I think you're doing a lot. I shouldn't say, I know you're doing a lot to help chiropractors doing that. I think this episode will help maybe rethink some things a little bit, maybe read Growth Mindset, read Learned Optimism, and then look up Tim Ferriss's Fear Setting. I think that could be a good start for them. But this has been a pleasure, Chris. I always enjoy talking to you, and it's not only because of your accent, but that's a big part of it. Where can they find what you got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So best place to find me is I'm very active on Facebook. I'm in your group, Modern Chiropractic Marketing. I'm in the FTPA. You can go to facebook.com/patient-centered. or my website is patientcentered.co.uk. I know we'll put this in the show notes. I did a dumb thing and I named my company after something that's spelled differently in the UK and the US. But to be honest, if you go on Facebook and search Chris Chippendale, I'm pretty sure I'm the only Chippendale in chiropractic. I don't think any other of the
Something else might pop up, but that's a different story.
Yeah, put chiropractic afterwards, or don't search in the office maybe. But I take the responsibility for that. But yeah, that's the best place to find me. What I do have as well is if people want some additional help on it. One of the things that I think no matter what style of practice you want to go into, your ability to demonstrate trust with patients is fundamental. So I have a free video series that people can get as well on, it's a concept I stole from John Morrison. I really like the way he put it, called the trust equation. But I've added to that in some ways you can basically demonstrate trust right away with patients. So we've got the link in patientcentered.co.uk/free trust. If you just want some extra content helping out, it's the best way to get that.
All right, perfect. We'll put it in the show notes. So thank you and appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Good chatting again, Kevin. Take care.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.